Here we are, Coffee with Bob. Today, my special guest is Davone Mullen. Davone, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you have an amazing story, and I want you to tell that story today, okay? I'm just going to guide you a little bit on some of the thoughts that I have. But let's start off with kind of where, your youth and how you got started in life. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm 41 years old now.
Yeah.
I have a 18-year-old daughter.
Wow.
I have a wife I've been engaged to for 10 years. We've been together 26.
Wow.
And we've been married about to be 3 years.
Nice.
So growing up, I was into sports.
Yeah.
My grandfather, he kept me and my brothers into sports.
Yeah.
And the sport that we played was soccer.
Yeah.
So we played for the Blunt Park Tigers. It was an urban team, but we had a mixed generation.
Yeah.
And it was good. I was left wing because I'm left-footed, and I was real good at goalie. So that's where they had me playing at. I could really play any position, and it was just great. I loved it. And as the years went on, I think I might have started when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yep, 8 years old. So as the years went on and we were playing, I think I could remember it was Greenleaf Park, and there were scouts that were going to be coming there.
Yeah.
And one of the scouts was this guy, Bill Maggi, and he had a team, Juventus, that he coached. So after the game, I think I had an amazing game that day.
Yeah.
But after the game, he came to my grandfather and told him that, he wanted me to come along and play for his team.
Wow.
So, that's what I ended up doing. And he was a guy that, like, we traveled. We didn't just do outdoor soccer. We did indoor. Yeah. We traveled, and it was amazing. It was a great time.
Where did you travel to? Just all over?
One of the places I could say was I remember we went to Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
I remember we went to Georgia, Maryland. Can't remember all the places.
Yeah.
I was pretty young.
So you were probably in like a youth development league that would take you to possibly into like the USA junior team or something?
Yeah, if I would have kept going, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Davone, let's talk a little bit more about your family. Tell us about that.
So I'm the middle child. I have an older brother and I have a younger brother. Yeah. And we were raised by my mother. My mother was a single parent. Yeah. And she did an amazing job. I know the struggles of raising men is kind of hard for a female, so she couldn't really, teach us how to be men, but she did an amazing job at raising us,
Nice. That's very seriously admirable for, single moms. It's a tough job. There's no question about it. Let's talk about you being as a student. How good were you as a student?
I was a good student, Yeah, I was, I went to school all the time. I was always in school. My mom made sure of that. And, my grades were good, A's and B's.
Wow,
maybe a C here and there, but I was good. I did what I had to do.
Yeah, way better than me. So that's great. One other thing I just want to point out is everybody take a look at Davone, how good he dresses. This is not just like today. This is all the time. He puts me to shame.
No, cut it out.
No, seriously. That's like every time you show up for one of our training sessions or our events, you're always dressed to the T's. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So Davone, let's get into an area that's more serious in your life. Okay, you kind of were really on a great path as in your youth, and then at one point things started to take a turn. I'm going to use the phrase guns, gangs, prison, and paralysis. Tell us about that.
So after, well, I ain't gonna say after because I was still playing sports, but we ended up moving. My mom, she ended up moving to a neighborhood on Eastern Ave, and it was a tough neighborhood.
Springfield?
Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a tough neighborhood, and that's pretty much where I grew up at. And I could say around 10, 11 years old it was what I can remember when we moved there. And it was just, it was a rough neighborhood. And the way I like to think about it or kind of explain sometimes is like, the life that I ended up getting into, it wasn't something that I was planning on doing.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, say if a lion has a cub in the wild, and it teaches us a few things, and then it leaves us on his own to survive.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
you basically have to adapt to your surroundings, and that's pretty much, you know, how it happened for me. I met a group of friends in the neighborhood, and we started getting into a lot of trouble. You know, just doing nonsense. You know, doing a bunch of kid stuff, but it wasn't stuff that we should have been doing.
Yeah.
And then it was just, as we started to grow, you know, we needed money. You know, my mother wasn't, you know, she had 3 kids, my 2 other brothers, so times was hard, and I was trying to think of ways that I could help out, but wasn't really of age. And I got into selling drugs. And when I got into selling drugs, it was you know, it was fast money. It wasn't something that I planned on doing, but it was fast money. It was helping out. And, you know, it comes with gangs, it comes with guns, violence, and things of that sort. So as time went on, you know, the fast money starts coming. Me and my friends, we all kind of could relate to each other because we were all like, no one had a father in their life.
Yeah.
We were all raised by single moms. And, you know, like I said, as time went on, you know, things began to take a turn because you start getting envious people, you know, and you start getting people that just, you know, they want what you have, or, you know, you're fighting over a territory that doesn't even belong to you. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, you gotta find a way to protect yourself. So, you know, guns start coming into play, and it's not going to be too long before you get caught up with the police. Yeah. So, you know, we started getting into trouble and getting caught up with the police. So, you know, I developed a record at a young age. I think my first charge was like 12 years old. Wow. You know, and it was just, you know, it just came with the life that I was getting involved in. Yeah. And
start taking a toll on your schoolwork too, and
family
absolutely. Life. I'm sure it was like,
absolutely. Yeah, I stopped attending school. I think in the 9th grade is when I stopped attending school. Yeah. And I started going to like alternative schools, but that wasn't working out either. Yeah. So it pretty much just stopped school altogether. Yeah. You know, and so it's you know, when it comes to the street life, it's kind of like I said, it wasn't something that was planned. Right. But it's kind of like an addiction, you know. So once you get too deeply involved, it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's kind of hard to just break away. So you got to you're gonna either go through a traumatic experience, or, you know, some people might just say, you know what, I don't want to do this no more. Yeah. But it's pretty much hard to stop once the fast money is coming. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about the first time that you were arrested and then had prosecuted and had to go to jail.
So the first time I was arrested, like I said, I think it was 12 years old. And I think that charge was just, I think we were breaking into like college dorms. Yeah. No, just doing nonsense. But when it came into the like the drugs, I think my first time getting arrested or having to do some time was when I was about 16 years old. Yeah. Yeah, when I was about 16 years old. And the judge kind of gave me a warning because I kept getting in trouble when he kept seeing me. Yeah. So he kind of put me in there the first time for like 3 weeks.
Juvenile?
Juvenile, which wasn't really nothing, to be honest. So it was like, okay, this comes with the life. It was like, then it's like when you come home, you kind of get embraced by friends and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a reward. You know?
Street cred.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like street cred. So it's like, it wasn't really nothing. But as time went on and I grew older, you know, we started really getting into feuds with other territories, other neighborhoods. Yeah. And people started getting, you know, shot, and, you know, some people were getting seriously injured, and so on and so forth. So it was like, it started to get real serious. And then when I was about 19 years old is when I got shot. Wow. So I got shot when I was 19 years old. Yeah. And I was, you know, I became a paraplegic. Yeah. But I never once embraced the fact that I wouldn't be able to walk again. Yeah. You know, so it was a traumatic experience, and, you know, to be honest, I could say it kind of changed my life for the better. Yeah. Because at the rate I was going, it was like kill or be killed. You know, I didn't really care. I didn't have any kids. I didn't really care about nothing. I lived for my friends. You know what I mean? So it wasn't nothing really to I ain't gonna say live for at that point, but it was like ride or die, you know, for your friends. So, you know, after I got shot, you know, I started to analyze and realize things, but it was like I still wanted revenge, you know, so it wasn't like it just ended right there. And to say the least, the trouble that I was getting into was so bad and it was so crazy that the district attorney didn't even care that I got injured.
Wow.
So a year after my injury, they had wanted me to go and do some time that I had caught a gun charge. And it was getting put off and getting put off and getting put off. But eventually it came to the time where it was either, you know, you have to go in.
Yeah.
And I thought because I was injured, you know, would be some sympathy involved, but the lady was not having it.
Wow. Yeah.
So I went to jail and I was sentenced to 2 years in a house of correction with 2 years probation.
Yeah.
And it was just, in there is where I started to realize, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Because at that point when I was in there, I had the people that we were feuding with, they were in there as well, a lot of them, and a lot of my friends were in there as well. And the thing that got me is that, you know, my friends were in there, they were all talking to each other. It was like, it was a friendly environment, you know? So it was like, what are we doing here? You know? Yeah, I got injured, I got hurt, like my life changed. Like I was ready to die for you guys. And it's like, now you're in here talking like everybody is friends. So it kind of just made me sit back and realize like, okay, you got to find another path. This is not what you want to do for the rest of your life. And then I think I was released on parole after a year of being in there.
Yeah.
And to say the least, I got right back into the same thing. Even though I was hurt and injured, it was still, you know, I needed to get some revenge. It wasn't over. You know, I wasn't fully over it. And I ended up getting into some more trouble to where I had a store on King Street across from Springfield College. And it was a store, but it was like a front. So we were still selling drugs out of the store and ended up getting raided. And that's when I went back and it was like, okay, like you're already at a disadvantage, you know, like what are you really doing? You know, and at that point, the same night that I ended up getting arrested, my wife, my fiance at the time, had told me that she was pregnant. So I was always told that I wouldn't be able to have kids. So it was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Are you sure? You know, you're
yeah, right.
Like what's going on here? And you know, it is like she stuck with me through a lot. So, you know, one day on a visit, it was just like, you can't keep doing the same thing. You know, I'm not going to stick around for this year after year while you figure it out and leaving me out here alone. You know, so when I went back to the unit, like I said, every day that went by, it was like, okay, I got a baby on the way. My wife's gonna end up leaving me. You better get it together. And I started my change in there. You know, I started taking, I ended up getting my GED while I was in there. And I started attending college courses from in there with this guy, Dan O'Malley. And when I was released, I continued on. And I think that's what kept me out of the streets, was something to really focus on.
Look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. It was something to focus on. So I ended up going to HCC for business administration. And I was doing so good at HCC, my grades were so good. And I had professors in there that was, you know, adapting to me as well, just seeing how I was maneuvering and I guess strong-minded. You know, I didn't see it at first. It was just, you know, I got to do what I got to do. So I really didn't embrace it as, you know, like this kid is amazing,
talented.
Like, yeah, absolutely. So with my grades and stuff being so good, I ended up transferring over to UMass. And Holyoke Community and UMass, they had this program to where if your grades, your academic status were good, that they would waive your tuition.
Wow.
So I ended up going over to UMass. I got transferred right into the Isenberg, which is
one of the best schools in our area for business. No question about it.
Absolutely. And yeah, I just, you know, I started liking what I was doing. I started liking my transition. You know, I had left the streets alone which was pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Even though I was still in the same neighborhoods, it was like, you know, I got something to look for now. You know, I got a baby girl. So,
wow.
Yeah, so, and in Isenberg, I think it was my senior year is when I opened up a convenience store on Boston Road.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where all the, you know, everything started from there.
Yeah.
That's when I started seeing, you know, money the legal way.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't no more selling drugs or shooting guns or any of that. It was, you know, now I'm here. And with the store, it came a lot of obstacles that I had to get over because, or had to go through because of my record, because of my past. So when it came to, you know, being able to accept EBT or the lottery, it was things that I had to go through as far as like, I got denied over and over again.
Right.
And I had to keep appealing, letting them know that, you know, give me another chance. You know, people change. You know, that was my past life. You know, I'm showing you now what I'm doing with myself. I'm not just saying it.
Yeah.
And throughout my process of UMass and Holyoke, I kind of knew that I was going to be on the verge of changing. So I was putting together a portfolio.
Yeah.
And my portfolio consisted of recommendation letters from professors, scholarships. I was just filling out for scholarships that I was receiving, academic awards that I was receiving, and my transcripts from both schools, which were, you know, I made the dean's list every semester. And when I was in Holyoke, you know, when I got to UMass, it's a little more rough, but I still had good grades. And putting my portfolio together, it was just something that I knew I was going to have to, you know, it was going to help me out along the way. So it actually did, you know.
So people started to believe in you at that point?
Absolutely.
And you believed in yourself, more importantly.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So you ended up graduating from Isenberg, right? And what was your degree in?
Marketing.
In marketing, you know? That's such an amazing story. So Davone, let's talk a little bit more about your professional life, okay? You know, let's talk about after the convenience store. You called me and said, I'd like to talk to you. And we had a meeting and we talked about your career path choice that you would like to make in the real estate business. We sat down and talked for a long time about who you were as a person, where you came from and everything. And, you know, you had said something a little while ago about people believing in you and second chances in life. And I totally bought into it. And to this day, it's not even buying into it. I believe in you. You know, you are somebody who has just done an amazing job in your life. So let's talk about that. You made a decision you wanted to get into real estate. How did that happen?
So where my confidence kicked in at was when I had the convenience store and I was going for the lottery. And they were telling me, you know, because I had felonies, it was impossible. You know, so I went and seen an attorney, a longtime friend that was an attorney of the family. And he said, you know, just try to put it in your wife's name because, you know, you don't want to ruin the spot. And I'm like, well, my transition in life, I want everything to be in my name and I want to do what I can do for myself, you know, very independent. So he was like, you know, he was just telling me, you know, I don't think you should do it. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go for it. So I filled out for the lottery and I got denied. And the reason why I got denied is because they said security. And I'm like, security? Like, I don't have a record for stealing or anything like that. So what was the problem? So I ended up calling the lottery commission and they told me to come out to Braintree to the headquarters. So when I you know, I got dressed, I went out there with my wife and I brought my portfolio with me. So when I walk into the office, it was a lady in there and it was a guy. So a guy says, he has my whole record on the table. And he says, this is our concern. And I gave him the breakdown of, you know, how I grew up and the things I've been through in life. But then I gave him my portfolio and I said, you know, this is what I'm doing now. So as soon as he starts flipping through the pages, he says, wow, you know, he's like, this is amazing. Like, can I take it back to my boss? And I'm like, absolutely. You know, this is why I brought it. So the lady that was sitting there as he went upstairs, she said, you're going to be good. Don't worry about it. So I'm like, okay. So he came back down, you know, he said that, you know, they're going to look it over, give it some time, and they'll get back to me. So about a week later, I got the letter in the mail and said, congratulations, you've been approved for the Massachusetts State Lottery. So that right there was like, okay, it's working.
Yeah.
You know, it's just working. And after a few years of having a store, I had it for 11 years, but I think maybe like in the ninth, 10th year, they had banned all tobacco products as far as like menthol and flavored tobacco. And that was one of my big sellers. Yeah. So it was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And I just started thinking, you know, and at first it was gonna be a car salesman, but then I was like, I don't think I wanna do that. Yeah. And that's when I decided to try to get into real estate. Yeah. So real estate was the choice. Like you said, we had a conversation. It was great. Yeah. We built on a lot, and you know, here I am today as, you know, a Berkshire Hathaway real estate agent. Yeah. And it's great being here. You know, it's great being here. And throughout my career path of real estate, I've always had different brokerages try to reach out to me and try to get me to switch over to their brokerage and things of that nature, because they, you know, they see what I'm doing on Facebook and social media. And it's just, you know, I'm big on loyalty, man. And, you know, you were good to me. You guys teach me a lot. Yeah. You know, you guys are wonderful. You know, you and Steph, you know, you guys are amazing. So it was like, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. And as I continue on, I know Steph always told me, you know, focus on your sphere of influence, you know. Yeah. And at one point I never knew what that was. So I'm like, what is my sphere of influence? You know, I'm new to this, so I didn't really know what it was. And she's like, you know, family, friends, and that. And I'm like, well, you know, a lot of people seem like they like to support me, but it's kind of like a love and hate thing. Yeah. So it's like they want to see you doing good, but not better than them. Yeah. So it's like, after seeing so much of my family and friends come to me for real estate advice, but then go to another agent to actually make the purchase, it was like, wow, like, okay, what's going on here? Yeah, right. So I kind of just sat back and was like, you know what? I'm gonna create my own lane for real estate. So what I did was, I never thought that I can drive like the big trucks, because I always thought you needed a third pedal for the clutch. Yeah. And I was sitting in the store one day, and I seen an ad on Facebook that was talking about, you know, becoming a hoister. Yeah. So I just gave the guy a call and was like, hey, you know, I always, you know, like construction, and, you know, I was thinking about, you know, driving trucks, but I was like, I'm a paraplegic, so I really can't use my feet that well. You know what I mean? Are the trucks driven by feet? And he was like, no, kid, you know, everything is technology driven now. So everything is by the hand. Yeah. You know, you could drive with your hand. And I'm like, what? I'm like, so I can drive those big trucks just with my hand? And he's like, yeah. He's like, okay. So I'm like, all right. So I'm like, you know, I would like to, you know, come and take the classes. Yeah. So I went out to Plainsville. I signed up for the classes. I went out to Plainsville, and I fell in love with it, you know. And even the guy that was running it, his name is Rick, and he came on one day and he stopped me and he said, have you been watching any like YouTube videos or anything? And I'm like, no, why you say that? He's like, you're doing amazing. You know, he was like, people don't gravitate this quick. Yeah. And that right there boosted my confidence as well. Again, so I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Now I feel like I'm in this big transformer truck, you know, I'm having fun. Yeah. And it also went with real estate. And like I said, I think I had my license for excavation 2 years. And then me and my brothers came together and was like, yo, we need to, let's try to put some money together and see what we can do with it. So we put some money together. We went to our accountant, and he introduced us to this guy that was part of a bank. And he said, basically, if you guys find the land, you know, I'll help fund the project. Nice. So it was like an instant connection. Yeah. You know, it's hard to get loans and stuff like that from the bank. So it was like an instant connection. And what we did was we bought 2 pieces of land. And the first one was on Norfolk Street in Springfield. And it came with a lot of deed restrictions. Yeah. So we didn't know anything about what we were doing. We just jumped into it, you know, because like I said, I wanted to be able to build and sell my own houses, since no one was really supporting me like that. You know what I mean? So it was like I wanted to build and sell my own houses. And the first house we built was a little rough. It was a lot rough, but we learned so much. Yeah. You know, we learned so much. So it was definitely a learning experience. And now that, you know, we learned what we learned, it's like it comes to us so easy now. I mean, every day is still a learning process, but we're not gonna let the same thing happen twice.
Yeah.
So the house that we're doing now, which is on Worthington Street, is actually running so much smoother. You know, we learned a whole lot. We in there doing a lot of our own work.
Yeah.
You know, the contractors that we do have is electrical, plumbing, HVAC.
Yeah.
And then after that, we go in there and we take over. And even when it came to that, it was a struggle with getting permits and stuff like that pulled. You know, everybody wants money, you know? So what I did was I took it upon myself to go take the classes to become a contractor. And I ended up failing the first time, but I went back again and I ended up passing. So now I'm a licensed excavator, I'm a licensed realtor, and I'm a licensed CSL.
Wow.
So kind of do a lot of the work on my own. And now it's like, I kind of see what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know?
So Davone, let's talk about where we are today, okay? Mm-hmm. You give back to the community in so many ways. Tell us about that.
So, so my faith has grown a lot in Christ, you know, along the way. You know, my mom always told me, you know, if it's a will, it's a way, no weapon formed. Meaning no weapon formed to get you shall prosper. And it's just, you know, as I started going to church and stuff like that, I started to like it more and more and more. And we recently, you know, got a new pastor, and he's 25 years old. You know, so after 33 years, we got a new pastor. He's 25. He's about to graduate Harvard. Yeah, he's about to graduate Harvard. And he's just amazing. You know, he likes to do a lot. You know, he's very innovative, and he has that young spirit. And so another thing before I jump into that is, you know, with my past history, I always heard that, you know, like, you know, you're so inspirational, you know, you got a wonderful story, like, you know, let nothing stop you. And just knowing how hard it was, you know, growing up and going through the things I went through, I kind of see the youth now today going through the same thing. Yeah. You know, so I feel like I can, you know, touch base with them more than someone that hasn't had the experience of going through, you know, like you can't really relate. Yeah. You know, so what I do is I go back to some of the alternative schools, which is where a lot of the bad kids are at, and I just give them my speech, man, and let them know, you know, it's there's no successful drug dealers. You know, you're really gonna either end up dead or in jail. You know, and it's like, before you go out there and think about shooting a gun or trying to kill someone, you know, or even selling drugs, you know, go lock yourself in a bathroom for 23 hours. Because that's how you're gonna be living for the rest of your life. Wow. You know, so it's like, I just, you know, try to get them on a right career path, man. And you know, they always say, if you can touch one, you know, you're doing enough. Yeah. So that's what I try to do. And I like it, you know, I like it. So I got, like I said, jumping back into, you know, the church. Yeah. So my faith's grown in Christ, you know, we got a new pastor, and we just do a lot of wonderful things now at the church. They used to do them before, but after COVID, you know, a lot of things stopped. Yeah. And when it did kind of end, it wasn't really nothing going on. A lot of people had left and stuff like that. So now that we got this young pastor in here, he's growing the church, and I'm a trustee there at the church. Wow. You know, I'm also, you know, part of the maintenance ministry, and I just try to find ways to help out as well. Yeah. So one thing that we did was we did a back to school drive for kids going back to school. Yeah. And what we did was we just got a bunch of backpacks and school supplies and stuff like that. And we linked up with a few friends that I knew that used to do the same thing as far as trying to give back to the community. Yeah. So we all got together and we put this event together for a back to school drive at the church. Yeah. You know, and we rented, you know, basketball hoops and rock climbing walls, and, you know, we gave away food and stuff like that. And then another thing that we do is every second Friday of the month, we do a food drive. Nice. So we give away groceries to the community, which is, you know, the less fortunate or those who need it. Yeah. And it feels good, you know. It feels good, especially coming from where I come from. Yeah. And you know, going through what I went through it's like it's a wonderful feeling to be able to give back, and just to see the happiness on people's faces, man, and to be a part of it is just, it's amazing. You know, it feels good. So it's great.
So Davone, you know, you touched me in my life, and I truly appreciate that. There's a reason we came together.
Absolutely.
And partnered here.
Absolutely.
You're an amazing real estate professional. You've done so much in your life. I'm so proud of you, and
Thank you.
you know, I just want you to know, this is just a small part of me telling your story, right? Because it is your story. It's just truly, you know, I'll use the word amazing again. You've overcome so much. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today, you know, telling your story, and let's continue to have a great real estate career.
Absolutely.
Do not go to another real estate company.
I'm here to stay.
I know where you live.
I'm here to stay.
But seriously, we truly appreciate it, and let's have a great 2025. Cheers, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.